Welcome to everybody to our Erev Tisha B'Av service online at the LJS. The program for the evening is going to be as follows. I'm going to give a little talk about Tisha B'Av and the liturgical context for it. Then we'll be going into our service. If you have a Siddur, it can be found on page 377. If you haven't got a Siddur, please don't worry, because all the readings will be found on the screen. And then afterwards, Harriet Goldenberg is very kindly going to facilitate a discussion for us, all of us on Zoom. We'll be able to see each other during that discussion. So let me begin. Yesterday I was invited to take part in a Council of Christians and Jews seminar entitled Living with Lament, Resources for Faith Leaders in Time of Reconstruction. I was asked to speak about Tisha B'Av, about the 3 weeks that precede the fast and the 7 weeks that follow and that lead up to Rosh Hashanah. I'd like to share this little talk with you, which takes 10 minutes. And then invite our readers to lead us in the service for this eve of Tisha B'Av. As I've said, after the service, Harriet Goldenberg is going to facilitate a discussion for all of us here. And we'll end at around 9:10 or 9:15, but no later. The process of grief follows its own rules: shock and numbness, grief and anger, sadness and resignation, and back again to incredulity and grief. We face our losses in different ways, both according to our temper and the triggers that unconsciously give expression to our heartache and sorrow. Such pain and anguish are unprescribed, unanticipated. They catch us unawares. We lose our foothold. These are our private burdens that we carry deep within our heart, the losses of family members or friends, recent or in the more distant past, the words of our memorial service on Yom Kippur, those who died peacefully in old age, and those who had another song within them, lives cut down in the midst of their days. Their memory is with us daily, and in the moments of ritual remembrance at home or in the synagogue, lighting a candle or reciting Kaddish on the anniversary of a loved one's death. Such rituals may help us move from our sorrow to the nurture of enduring love, from pain to gratitude, in a sense that all life is part of a natural cycle. Our days are as grass. We blossom like a flower in the field. The wind passes over it, and it is gone. It is no more. But there are too the burdens and sorrows we bear as the Jewish people, with days of remembrance, fasting, and lamentation embedded into the liturgical calendar. And the darkest part of the Jewish year comes at the brightest and hottest time of the summer, in late July or August, in fact at this very moment in time. Oblivious to the carefree weeks of the summer holidays, what were once carefree, the long days and short nights in the northern hemisphere at least, we are burdened with 3 weeks of mourning, known simply as the 3 weeks. They begin on the 17th day of the month of Tammuz and culminate with the fast of Av, Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of the month of Av. The first of these dates commemorates the breaching of the walls of Jerusalem, the 9th of Av. The 9th of Av marks the destruction of both first and second temples in Jerusalem. The 3 Sabbaths, which we've just celebrated, that occur between the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av, are distinguished by 3 prophetic readings, 2 from Jeremiah and the 1st chapter of Isaiah, each one of them passages of admonition and rebuke addressed to a sinful people. Isaiah 1 gives its name to the Sabbath before Tisha B'Av, Shabbat Chazon, the Sabbath of vision. Although Isaiah lived 100 years or more before the destruction of the first temple, this chapter serves as a prelude to the reading of the book of Lamentations, which we read tonight and tomorrow, the tone and imagery preparing us for the most mournful day in the Jewish calendar, a day of fasting, lamentation, and mourning. Isaiah, like the poet of Lamentations, contemplates in elegiac form the suffering and dislocation that would occur after the destruction of the temple and the exile that followed. This evening, as the sun has set, we gather in our synagogue, perhaps, and now of course in our homes, perhaps sitting on low stools or on the ground, about to listen to the book of Lamentations and other readings. Eicha chanted in a mournful tone, its trope like a woman keening over and over again. This is the book, says Shai Cohen, that is the eternal lament for all Jewish catastrophes, past, present, and future. And so Tisha B'Av is commemorated not only for the catastrophe of the destruction of the first temple in Jerusalem and the exile of the people from their land in 586 BCE, but also the second temple in 70 CE, and countless other tragedies that have beset the Jewish people, from the massacres of whole communities during the Crusades to the murder of Jews who were held responsible for the Black Death in the 14th century, the expulsion of the Jews from England in 1290 and from Spain in 1492, pogroms in Poland, Ukraine, and Russia, and the murder of 6 million Jews during the Shoah. At the height of the summer, when we should be throwing off the fetters of our work and thinking of our holidays, we enter a cycle of sorrow and remembrance of past calamities. In more recent liturgies, we have commemorated not only our own tragedies, but more universally, the August 1945 nuclear decimation of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Zalman Schachter Shalomi expresses the obligation of global remembrance in this way. At a time when the sun is burning hot, we must mark Hiroshima Day, not retreat into a bleak vision of our place in the world. The teshuvah, the repentance for the 3 weeks, is to examine how we have distorted the particular. In the midst of remembering our history, we must reclaim as well our role as planetary citizens. Tisha B'Av's strict mourning practices restrict even the study of Jewish texts considered a joyous practice, apart from the book of Job, parts of Jeremiah that describe the destruction of the temple, and sections of the Talmud that also deal with the destruction. Our evening service is lit by only a few candles or lights and recited in hushed tones. And in the morning, the book of Lamentations will be read once again. But of course, we cannot remain in this dark and bleak moment forever. God cannot continually shut out our prayers, as Lamentations puts it. God's anger driving the author of Lamentations into unrelieved darkness, wearing away his flesh and skin, shattering his bones, deceiving him into believing that his strength and home have perished before a hidden God, is finite. At his lowest ebb, the weeping poet recalls the kindness of God, whose mercies are not spent, but are renewed every morning. It is here that the mood of the day begins to turn and lift. An expression of hope lightens the darkness and relieves the pain. The howling lament recedes. The mourner sits alone and waits patiently for pardon and relief, praying that God will take his people and renew his people's days as of old. The late afternoon and evening of Tisha B'Av begin to bring balm and consolation and the hope of redemption, and healing and anticipation come in the weeks that follow, with 7 prophetic readings, Haftarot, read on the 7 Sabbaths between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah, all from 2nd Isaiah, all on the theme of consolation, beginning, as we will hear this Shabbat, with Isaiah 40, Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, Yomar Elohechem, comfort, O comfort my people, saith your God. We move from darkness to light, from mourning to rejoicing, from the 3 weeks to Av Menachem, Av the month of comfort, and into the 6th month of the year, Elul, and a period of repentance and the hope that comes with a new year that awaits us. The feat, if I may call it, of entering this season of mourning is not easy. Our tempers may be at odds with the liturgical mood of Tisha B'Av, just as we may find it difficult to find the energy to celebrate on the festival of Sukkot that commands us to rejoice before God. As liberal Jews, we live between 2 calendars, the Jewish lunar solar cycle of Sabbaths and holy days, and the Gregorian solar calendar. We are aware of the history of our own people, but at the same time conscious of our obligations to all humanity. And we live too in the consciousness of this new world, in which something familiar has receded into the past, and something new and strange has entered into our own time. And we cannot necessarily see its beauty or meaning. We feel only the strains of recent losses and the uncertainty of future times. Like the generations that lived in the aftermath of Roman destruction of the temple, we can only be silent in a place of bewilderment and fear. Yet in that silence, may we sit and wait patiently for God, who will help us to return to him and renew our days as of old. So I'd like to invite our readers to unmute themselves, and we start now with our special service.
Tisha B'Av. On this ancient day of mourning, we think of all God's children who have suffered and perished because of the cruelty of their fellow human beings. But we think especially of the agonies inflicted on our own people, the house of Israel, ever and again, from earliest until recent times. Some we have forgotten, others are sealed into our memory, a wound that does not heal. We mourn 100 generations of victims and martyrs whose blood still cries out from the earth.
How lonely sits the city, once full of people, once great among the nations, now a widow, a princess among states, reduced to vassalage.
Bitterly she weeps in the night. Tears run down her cheeks. There is none to comfort her among all her friends. All her allies have betrayed her and become her foes.
Judah, subjected to harsh oppression, has gone into exile. Living among the nations, she found no resting place. Her pursuers overtook her in the narrow passes.
Is it nothing to all of you who pass by? Look, and see if there's any pain like the pain that has been inflicted on me.
What can I testify for you? With what compare you, O daughter of Jerusalem? To what can I liken you, that I may comfort you, O innocent daughter of Zion?
For your ruin is vast as the sea. Who can heal you?
Remember, O God, what has befallen us. Look and see our degradation.
Our heritage has been turned over to strangers, our homes to aliens.
We have become orphans, fatherless. Our mothers are like widows.
Gone is the joy of our hearts. Our dancing is turned into mourning.
So it was for us at this season in the days of Babylon, and so it was again in the days of Rome. On the 9th of Ab, the Chaldeans made another desperate sally, but were driven back by an overpowering force of the besiegers. The hour of the city's doom was about to strike, and in striking, leave an echo that would ring through the centuries to come. The besieged attempted one more furious onslaught upon their enemies. They were again defeated, and again driven back to their sheltering walls. But this time they were closely followed by the Romans, one of whom, seizing a burning firebrand, mounted upon a comrade's shoulder and flung his terrible missile through the so-called golden window of the temple. The fire blazed up, it caught the wooden beams of the sanctuary, and rose in flames heavenwards.
Eli Zion ve'ayira, kamo isha b'tzirecha, v'chiftu lach aguratzok, al banu uveha.
So it was for us in ancient times, and so it has been many times since. Exile and persecution, how often that has been the Jewish faith. Whole communities were destroyed during the Crusades. We were held responsible for the Black Death. Jews were banished from almost every kingdom in Europe until in 1492. The fateful expulsion from Spain was ordered by royal decree. In Poland, in the Ukraine, in Russia, anonymous thousands suffered pogroms and death for being Jewish. And only recently we drank more deeply than ever from the cup of sorrow. A world without Jews, that was the intent of Hitler and the Nazis.
קול ברמה נשמע, נהי בכי תמרומים. רחל מבכה על בניה, מענה להנחם על בניה, כי איננו. A voice is heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping. Rachel is weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted for her children, for they are no more.
We are sick here, a multitude of locusts, fallen suddenly upon the whiteness of the wintry wood. With mouths open in purid breathing, we draw out a word like hoarse fiddles. Who still needs us, wrapped up in shawls with feverish eyes? And what use are we? Pines raise their branches high in order not to touch us, in order to shun us, shun us. We scream to the woods and spit blood into their fragrant roots. That's why the trees stir at night and tell how big is a cemetery here and mock the dying to the last shadow of memory. With their tall growth, with their fat trunks, millennial lives, I am here too, solitary, sick, wrapped in a shawl, and I step slowly in the snow among the trees, and no one knows that I am still myself.
These things do I remember. Through all the years, ignorance like a monster has devoured our martyrs, as in one long day of blood. Rulers have risen through the endless years, oppressive, savage in their witless power, filled with a futile thought, to make an end of that which God has cherished.
All this has come upon us, yet we have not forgotten you, or been false to your covenant.
For your sake we have been slain continually, and accounted as sheep for the slaughter.
O God, do not be silent. Do not hold your peace or be still.
For your enemies rage, and those who hate you hold their heads high.
They plot crafty schemes against your people and conspire against those who seek your shelter.
They say, come, let us wipe them out as a nation. Let the name of Israel be remembered no more.
But there is hope. There is hope because even in times of deepest darkness, there was courage, compassion, and decency. The human spirit was not entirely defeated, and a remnant of our people survived. There are stars whose light reaches the earth only after they themselves have disintegrated and are no more. And there are men and women whose shining memory lights the world after they have passed from it. These lights which shine in the darkest night are those which illumine for us the path. There is hope because, powerful though the forces of evil are, the force of goodness is mightier still. There is hope because of our belief that God's purpose will, in the end, be fulfilled. There is hope because of our faith that, at some future time, human beings will respond to the good within them and the God beyond them, and, as partners with God, will usher in that longed-for age of love and amity, friendship and peace, for us and for all people. The optimism of the prophets, which has become the optimism of Judaism, issues from the faith in God's concern for this world. The moral law, which rules history, assures that ultimately the world will be changed into the better world which God's rule requires.
Thus says the Eternal One, restrain your voice from weeping and your eyes from tears, for your work shall be rewarded. And there is hope for your future, says the Eternal One. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Eternal One, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope. You will call on me, you will come and pray to me, and I will hear you. You will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart.
This I call to mind, therefore I have hope.
Surely your love, O God, never ceases. Surely your mercies are unending.
They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness.
You, Eternal One, are my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in you.
Let us search and examine our ways and return to God.
In my hand, I'm holding what I believe is a symbol of this year's rabbinic ordination, which is a mask with the Leo Beck College logo on it. This morning, 4 student rabbis have been ordained and became rabbis. And the feelings, and I was there as one of the guests, one of the 18 guests. And although the image of a face mask is an image of a sad ceremony, but they chose to write down words from Psalm 150. Kol haneshama tehalel Yah. Every living being, every breathing creature praises God. The book of Lamentations ends with the following two verses. Bring us back to you, the Eternal One, that we come back. Renew our days as of old. And the last one, for indeed you have rejected us. You have been furious with us. The book of Lamentations ends with a very pessimistic line. But our tradition chose to repeat the penultimate line. And every single time we read the book of Lamentations, we reject the text. We refuse to end it with the pessimistic view, and we choose to end it with the words of hope. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'neshuva, chadesh yameinu kekedem. Help us to return to you, O God. Then we shall return. Renew our days as in the past. The music you are going to hear now has been recorded for the Liberal Judaism Biennial, for the very final song of the biennial, and we are going to repeat it now.
Hashivenu